think it's a good time to start now. So hello everyone again. This is Trisha along with Luca as moderators today for the motivational talks session on for the LHC job matching event of 2024 spring edition. I would like the speakers to please note that you will have exactly 15 minutes for the presentations, and the moderators will react with an hourglass emoji after 10 minutes, and discussions will follow after completion of all the three talks. So without further ado, I would like to hand over to our first speaker, Dr. Rebeca Gonzalez Suarez, who is an associate professor at Uppsala University and member of the Atlas collaboration.
Thank you very much, Trisha. So I will try to share my slides now. I think you probably can see them. Does this work?
Yes.
Excellent. So thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here. I hope I can give some kind of motivation within this talk. So the first thing will be to introduce myself a little bit more. So I am a particle physicist with almost 20 years of experience in collider physics. So it's been a while already. I'm originally from Spain. I am, as Trisha said very well, a member of the Atlas collaboration, but I used to be in CMS for 13 years. I did my PhD in Higgs arches and I graduated in 2010. And I have a 10-year faculty position in Uppsala. I have a very small group with 2 PhD students, 1 postdoc, and sometimes master students. This is quite small, depending on which country you compare it with. For Sweden, it's quite all right. So the first thing I want to say is that I do not have a conventional academic path because, among other things, I come from a working class family. I am the first academic in my family. I have the first PhD in my family. And I just wanted to bring up these 2 pictures down here. I think you can see my cursor, because worker protests against the police were a very regular background of my childhood and adolescence. And in fact, here is my high school, and we will come out and watch the people fighting with the police, and it was a very interesting situation. So my dad is a steel worker. The ship war all his life. He was also a shipyard worker, and then he was laid off when these things happened. My mom mostly did non-remunerated jobs. She did cleaning jobs. I have helped in her jobs. So it's a little bit of a different thing than most people that I find in academia. So in terms of how I came here, it's because my math teacher told me to study physics, and so I did. I had financial constraints studying, and I had to work odd jobs to afford things like books, which was not great. I didn't understand the need for good grades. I still was the first in my specialty, but we were not many people. And I finished physics without knowing what a PhD was and no particular ambition of doing one. But a particle physics teacher proposed me to do a PhD. And since I had no other plans, I said yes. So what I had at the time before starting my path in academia was a lot of luck. I had a bulletproof self-confidence that I still don't understand how I got. And I had a lot of people that gave me chances, that they were mostly teachers, right? But one thing that I want to say is that I have never met a senior that didn't tell me that their path to academia was unconventional. And this has been said sometimes for people that do have a very weird academical path, but also sometimes it's said with people that have quite common ones. Anyway, so the take-home message is that you shouldn't worry a lot if your path is a little bit different, and understand that why it is different and how it can affect you. And I think that's the only thing you can do about it. All right, so 2 years into my PhD, my supervisor sent me to CERN. I had never been before. Before starting the PhD, I didn't really knew what CERN was. I was not particularly enthusiastic about it because I had my life there, and the plan was to be there for 6 months. But in fact, I didn't leave until more than 10 years later. I didn't want to leave. Right? So the fact of going to CERN and go away from the institution and meet all these people at CERN really gave me the sense of purpose that I needed and show me what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. You have me there looking like an idiot in my first visit to CMS. So it was a great time, and I was, by complete accident, at the best place. So I had the luck to work in the Higgs observation and to be at CERN for the LHC startup. So it was really amazing. I mean, I loved the energy and the fast pace of the work. I loved even the competitiveness of the Higgs group. It's weird to say, but it was exciting. I met the most interesting people in my life, and soon I was graduating. Here is a picture of me presenting my thesis and me signing the papers. So, but then I had acquired more stuff. So I had back then a vision of what I wanted to do research-wise, and the flexibility to do something else and find my own angle. And I also had acquired a two-valley problem. because like it happens to many people, I met my husband in Geneva. We were both PhD students. He was in Atlas and I was in CMS. We defended the thesis in the same year, so everything was at the same level field. And we agreed on a plan. We will stay at CERN as postdocs. And so this is what we did. We both yes started at that. So I have advice for people in two-body problem situations because I think it's important from the very beginning to have agreements on how to do things. And my number one suggestion is to never prioritize the career of one person over the other. And that if somebody does something for the other, like, okay, I follow you there, then this has to be reciprocated because if not, it creates a very weird imbalance. We somehow manage, but I know this is hard. So my first postdoc was with the VUB Brussels, and it was based at CERN. So I had started applying about 3 months before my defense, but I had not applied super broadly yet. I had an offer from one university to be based at CERN, and another one from the VUB Brussels to be based in Brussels. And I declined that one, but then they offered me to stay at CERN anyway, so I took it, and I became the first postdoc of Freya Bleckman that some of you might know because he's very well known all over. And I also was invited to find a topic in top physics. Back then I was doing Higgs, as you might remember. And well, I could pick anything I wanted. And moving to top quark physics from the Higgs was a great move for me professionally because, I mean, it's always hard to change topic, but usually it's worth the effort, unless it's really too atomized. I kept a light touch in the Higgs group, and while we were claiming the observation of the Higgs boson, I was working on the first evidence of single top TW that has a similar final state. Like this, I got a PRL that it was led by me. At the same time, I was putting 50% of my time in service in the tracker and doing a lot of shifts. And I was taking more service for being at CERN while postdocs in Brussels were teaching instead. I had 0 teaching so far because PhD students in Spain do not teach. So I have a few take-home messages up to this point. So do not be afraid of changing physics topics. In fact, I think you should change physics topics, but you should also connect them and connect them also with your service and make your research cohesive. Another take-home message that I want you to have is that doing service and detector work is a net positive. So it's not only something that gives you SCAP nominations. I have heard people say that doing detector work takes away options for the future, but I've never met a faculty person that did not have substantial service before getting that role, and sometimes also after. And another important thing is that teaching is very important. And doing a little bit of teaching is already better than having 0 teaching. Independently, you were terrible at it. I have also heard postdocs saying that teaching is not valued. And my experience is exactly the opposite. That having teaching in your CV is really important to get faculty job. All right. So, but my postdoc in Brussels was 2+1 years. But after 2, I decided to find a US postdoc because I wanted to have a higher salary for the Geneva area and I wanted to have a longer contract. So I applied to every open US position that was there at the time and was invited to many interviews. And my first offer was from Nebraska, the very first, right off the bat. I have not even interviewed in most places where they had invited me. But I accepted it over offers from higher ranked university, which is something that I was questioned at some time by different people, right? And in fact, I think the UNL group was really a great choice for me. Because in this second postdoc, I developed a lot. Nebraska helped me tap into my potential, giving me freedom. First, I got the observation of TW, another PRL. I became the single top convener in CMS. Then I came back to do more Higgs. I produced a legacy paper that was a PRD that again I was leading. Then I became the Higgs to WW convener, and then I left that to actually become the top convener in CMS in 2016. At the same time, I did service in Monte Carlo simulation. I have left the tracker, but most notably, I did a lot of shifts. And in fact, I incorporated into the RAM field manager team in 2015, doing these 2-week stints each year until I left CMS. So it was time to get a faculty job. But getting a faculty job is not easy, even though for some people it is easy. So this might be your case, and then congratulations. Because it is tough out there. The faculty job market is a complicated thing. And Ken Bloom, the professor in Nebraska, that was my boss, it was a fantastic boss, never had a better one, told me to apply to everything. And I did not want to. Eventually I did with some caveats, and he was actually right. Because you never really know if you want a place or not until you have been there. And the more you apply, the better you get at applying. So you should, if you're interested in getting a faculty job, you should apply to every single one that is there. And then if you get an offer and you decline it, then they will move it to the next person, and that will be about it. If somebody gets upset with you for declining a job, then it's like there is no clear sign that that place was not for you. So my own path was not super easy. I had the end of my convenership as a deadline to get a permanent faculty job, or else I would just quit and go out in the industry. But I decided to make this distinction, and I applied to 33 jobs or grants that lead to a job. So I was 10 times shortlisted or top graded, and I was contacted directly by the institute to apply about 12 times. You see here like the different number of applications each year. You see that 2015 and 16 were the years where I really put an effort there, and it's the year also when I got offers. So going back to the invitations to apply, do not take invitations to apply to jobs that then you do not get as a personal thing. When a position is open, you want to have great candidates applying. Yeah, you may lose your time applying to that, but it's experience that can set you closer to another job. So it's something that, don't take it personal if they just invited you for numbers. Some jobs do have a local or a preferred candidate. Okay, this is the things that actually happen, but nothing is completely set in stone. I have seen those jobs going to different people. And at the very minimum, if you apply to one of these jobs, you get some practice and some networking as well. So in terms of applying, I have a few messages around to send based on my experience. So mentoring matters, and you're going to compete with people that have mentors that read their applications and give them advice. So if you can, get a mentor. And if you can share your materials with people you trust, mentors preferably, I think you should do it. Resisting this when you have people that want to help you will likely hold you back. And I say this from experience because I always felt really, really embarrassed to share any materials with anybody. So one thing that is an advice that I got, and then I started doing, I realized that it was good advice, is to ask every senior person around for advice. When you are deciding that you want to try the faculty market, they will love it. I promise you, they like to give advice, and then will likely give you very good tips. But also you have to be wary of advice from people that got the jobs decades before you in different countries than the one you target, or that they were clearly very lucky. So, take all the advice with a grain of salt, including the advice in this presentation. Then you should for sure adapt your materials for each job and check clearly the announcements and research minimally at least each place to make sure that it feels like you put a little bit of an effort. In terms of letters, you should make sure you have a good balanced set of people writing you letters. Be aware that when you target very high profile people to write letters for you, it is thank you, I will finish as soon as possible. It is a good thing, and it will be seen as a nice thing. However, high profile people might be writing letters for your competitors, and they might write that you are worse than somebody else that they are applying for the same position. So be careful there. And the fact is that you can have multiple people writing you letters. You can have more than 3 in most cases, and that's fine. And do not upfront decline a letter from somebody that is offering, because this person that you think is not good enough to write you a letter might be sitting in your hiring committee one day. And this might be based or not in experience. Okay. Now, if you get into the interview, in terms of interview questions, you will get mostly the same questions in all interviews. You should prepare for them, keep notes, and it's going to be useful. Timing, like probably today I'm not really being very good at that, is extremely important. And if in an interview you are not the main candidate and then you go over your time, they might cut you and you will not be able to show your merit. Get somebody to check your slides, of course. Make sure every claim has facts. Do not tell the negative up front. Let the committees to find it on their own. And if you do have negative feedback from a pre-application or whatever, make sure that your slides cover you up in there. And always ask questions at the end. Always come prepared with questions you prepare. It's really important. All right, so what I got were grants. I had 2 choices that were some starting grants into different countries. And in many countries, a grant is the only way to eventually get in a faculty job, but that's highly country dependent. And grants are very, very different. So some are very hard work that require a lot of scientific overview. Others are just basically CV submission. So the ticket to write a good grant is to have seen one. So make sure that you try to sneak in and to get some grants to learn from. And you should have some people to read your grant. The idea is a mentor that you should have from before that knows how the grant you're writing should look like. And best of all, a friend that has actually gotten that grant. So in fact, having this one amazing colleague that lets you their time and advice is one of the best possible things to have. So, I mean, if you are lucky enough to have that, yes, exploit it. But be very wary of seniors that could steal the ideas from your grant proposals. You share your materials only with people you trust. I know that's hard. You should write to non-experts. Nobody cares about how you're going to derivate some systematic unless this is only truly innovative. So just make sure that you are really, it's understandable for people that are not in your field. The feedback that you get from the grant proposal can be a complete shit, but can also elevate it to the next time. So just take it, don't take it personal, and try to implement the feedback. And there is grant support normally available. Some people even take days. I never managed to do that. but just try to do it in your case. From my side, one of my grants was in Sweden. My husband is Swedish. My other grant was not in Sweden, but they did offer a job to my husband. By going to Sweden, then I was moving to Sweden because of him, and he was moving to Sweden because of me. So he left the field. He found a job in industry. It was quite easy for him, and because he could use his network right away. And then we moved from Geneva to Stockholm, and me from CMS to Atlas. In the point when you get an offer, please do negotiate. It's extremely important. Not negotiating does not make you look better, and the opposite is in fact true. And in many countries, like for example, Sweden, is mandatory. There is not mark salary that you can go for. All right. So in the move, I of course has to change from one experiment to another, from CERN to an institute, start teaching. I mean, it was all kind of very positive for me, but it was a lot of challenges to try to adapt to different places. Moving to Atlas was particularly different, but I started to work also in different physics. So it was an interesting period of change. But I found a new hope and a loophole working in future colliders. I was quite worried about the future of the field, and I was worried about high luminity. And I accidentally joined, it seems to be a pattern indeed of me, the FCC community 2019. And like this, I could keep my network from CMS, and I got really motivated to the future. I really am at the moment. So that's cool. Anyway, so in summary, do I love my job? Yeah, I absolutely do, especially based on the people I get to work with. I mean, it is a source of a lot of satisfaction, right? But at the same time, it is also just a job. So I consider myself privileged every day, most likely because of my upbringing. But every day I'm also upset with many small things in the job. I have seen the best people I've met live in academia and thrive outside. I have seen great colleagues stay and get great jobs. I have also seen great colleagues stay, getting shitty jobs, and I have seen mediocre people get great academic jobs, which means that it's really something that you cannot really predict what is going to happen to you. But at the end of the day, I'm the most grateful for the friends I made and the fun that I had so far. So thank you very much. I hope I didn't go too much over time. 26 slides.
No worries. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Rebecca. It was very interesting and inspiring, I have to say. Now we'll keep questions for later. We move to the second talk, which is by Dr. Natalie Heracleous. She's a medical application physicist, and she's also part of the CERN alumni network of the CMS collaboration. So please, Natalie, you can share your screen, and the floor is yours.
Yes, hello. Okay. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, very well.
So hello, I'm Natalie Heracleous, and I'm here to talk about my transition from particle physics to medical applications and life after CERN, so the opposite from Rebecca. So why this talk? First, I want to thank you for inviting me to give this talk. I will describe my personal journey and express my personal opinions on that. So I want to really share my honest experience about this transition from academia to industry for a high energy physicist. And I say high energy physicist because I think that it's harder for a physicist to do this transition than for other fields, engineers, IT, and etc. And especially if one wants to stay in this area, because many people stay at CERN, they build their life around this area, or they really love the area and want to stay. So it's another level of complexity to stay in the area and make the transition. And also how to make this difficult decision to stay, either to stay and try harder to get a permanent position, which is also luck, but also timing and competence. And high energy physics is cool. So most of the people want to stay, they're not sure, or leave it before it's too late. And this, it's too late, is also subjective. Probably it was too late for me when I left. But okay, so about me, the first time that I visited CERN was in 2007 as a summer student. And it was the time, I mean, I spent the time of my life. It was my dream that came true. I always wanted to visit CERN. And this summer really was one time that was very crucial for me personally and for how my life continued, because I was so amazed and I had so much fun, you see from the first photo, but also learned so much that I decided that summer that I really want to pursue for my PhD, finish my master's thesis and go for a PhD. And My work experience, so my professional career, I can say that is split in two parts. The first part is when I was doing physics analysis within the CMS collaboration for the CMS detector. And then the second part where I was working on various medical applications. So for the first part, I did my PhD in Germany. I was mostly based in Germany and I was visiting CERN regularly. It was a great period. I was working on electroweak physics. It was when the LHC started, the discovery of the Higgs. The anticipation was amazing, and there was too much passion within the community. And then I did my postdoc in Belgium, in Brussels. The first year I was based in Brussels, and the second year I was based in Geneva. But I have to admit that the second year of my postdoc was very challenging for me personally and professionally. Due to different circumstances, and I was also pregnant with my first child, and I was overwhelmed. So I decided to take a step back and take some time to decide if I wanted to continue working for CMS and in high energy physics, or to move to something else. And I discovered that I did some research, and I discovered that I would like to find something with medical applications. So at that time, the work of knowledge transfer and outreach was not so known. I was in the CMS bubble, which is a great bubble, but I was not aware of all the work that was done from groups around CERN, but not for the big experiments. So I had to really research a lot. I think nowadays knowledge transfer, outreach are more active, and people really know what is happening, except from the big experiments. So when I realized that there was a small team that was called Special Projects Team within the radiation protection group that was really doing medical physics and medical applications, I applied for a CERN fellow, aiming in my application these specific things. So really expressing my interest in working in medical applications. And I started my fellow in 2018. I stayed there for 3 years within this group. And then I also did a project associate with IRA in CHUV in Lausanne, which was anyway one of our collaborators. Now I'm working as a medical application physicist within 3R. I will explain later. And I'm also doing some consultancy, external contracts as a regulatory affairs specialist for a small company of medical devices. Okay, this is the first part of my work experience. I will not go into detail the analysis. It's just to show you that I worked for my thesis in the measurement of the associated Z boson plus B jet. And you see the plot here. We are talking about 2.2 inverse femtobar. And we did a search of the displaced supersymmetry. It was one of the first displaced objects analysis then. And this plot is with 19.7 in femtobar. Now the second part of my professional career these are the projects that I worked during my fellow and within the medical applications group. So we had research activities in the area of medical physics, and the goal was to use the detectors and the know-how that we have at CERN because of the big CMS experiments and the big experiments, CMS and Atlas and all the other experiments, and to apply them in cancer therapy. And we created a prototype detector for that. We successfully submitted an attract funding proposal, and we were able, it was the first time that I could really get involved with external companies, collaboration with industry, and just being more extrovert and not so much only within CERN. This was the first time for me working with people outside. And also we had hands-on lab work that I didn't happen to do in CMS while I was working there. And we went to clinical settings like hospitals in Italy, Germany, and Switzerland. So it was really an interesting experience. And then within this group, we had also another project that really helped me develop professionally. It was the WMON project. So in fact, the WMON is a wireless network of interconnected sensors that we wanted to install in containers at CERN so we can measure the radiation levels. Now, nowadays at CERN, there is a person that is getting paid and goes manually around all the containers at CERN just to make sure that nothing radioactive was thrown there by accident or on purpose. And this is, of course, prone to mistakes and time-consuming. And so we wanted to automatize this process, which is a very complicated process. I will not go into details about the project, but this project gave me the chance to expand. This means that I was not using any more root or root combination with Python. I was using only Python pandas tools, and I was using databases and tools that I was not using before during my CMS analysis. Internet of Things, I learned what LoRa networks are. We installed the first LoRa network at CERN because of this project, so it helped me a lot. And what I'm doing now in my current role, after my time as a fellow and then at CHUV in Lausanne, I'm a medical application physicist in the R&D department of Group 3R, Réseau Radiologique Romain, which is a radiological network of diagnostic centers in the French-speaking part of Switzerland. So diagnostic centers, they have CT machines, MRI machines, mammography, etc. And actually, it's when you get a prescription from a doctor that you need to have a scan, you go to one of these diagnostic centers, you get your exam, and in the end, you have a radiologist there that will give you the radiologist report, his diagnosis, and this is how, this is one of the centers in our network. We have research activities in the area of medical application and artificial intelligence implementations in these centers. And this is very crucial because R&D is needed in these centers because the healthcare professionals, they need help from data scientists, medical physicists, engineers, because they have to navigate between multiple systems and interfaces, and they really need to be aware of the new developments from AI, because they are using some of the AI software, of how they work, and at least be up to date about the clinical validation, what it needs to be done, how this software were built, etc. And here is what we do in the R&D. And what we do is sometimes we develop the machine learning, sometimes the machine learning algorithms, sometimes we co-develop with external companies, and sometimes we don't develop at all. We use an AI software, and then we do the clinical validation. We see the impact of this software in the patient and in the doctor, in the workflow, etc. So a day in my current role, I tried to choose 4 of the projects that I'm currently working on, and each box represents one of the projects. CT contrast agent personalization, the blue box. This is when, for example, a patient goes to have a CT scan. You always get a contrast agent injection, so you have an image that makes sense and is enhanced. For this, each person gets the same amount of volume, which is not correct, but this amount of volume comes from the company of the contrast agent, and for historical reasons, it is there. But we know that we can personalize this, and for a person that is smaller like me, I will not need the same amount as a person that is bigger or has a different gender or has a different CT machine. So there are parameters that can be really personalized. And for this, we built an ML model to be able to personalize and to calculate on the fly when a patient arrives the amount that needs to be injected in his body, and not more, which can be toxic and create health issues. So we also implemented that, and we did the clinical validation. Then another project is the MRI breast cancer diagnosis. For this, for example, we are working with an external company, which is called ScreenPoint. And it's an algorithm. We are developing an algorithm for breast cancer diagnosis, which it processes the images, and in the end, it gives you a score, low risk, medium risk, and high risk. It will never replace the radiologist, the person, so the human is there, but it will give you a second opinion on that. And sometimes a tired radiologist is not that efficient as the software, or the software can make a mistake and there is a radiologist. So a combined force is the best. And then for the yellow box, it's called MRI knee assistant. For example, for this case, we implemented the software. We had nothing to do with the building of the software or the machine learning model and training. But when we apply this in our diagnostic centers, I extract the data and I use the data to see how efficient the application of the AI is. So we have a phase 1 where we gather the data where AI is not applied. We have a phase 2 where the AI is applied, and phase 3 where AI and automatic reporting, so automatic also filling in of the report is applied. And then we have metrics where we check how the reading time of the radiologist has changed, how the quality of the diagnosis has changed. We do population analytics, we do stratification of complexity of cases, and so on and so forth. So this is this analysis. And then we have the intelligent protocoling, the orange box, where in fact is an NLP model to make a faster and easier protocol decision. It means that if a patient, for example, has an indication, a headache plus a nausea and ear pain, the model will take this indication and will try to give to the radiologist the correct configuration and exam that needs to be performed. So these are some of the projects that I'm working on. And in every project, I'm doing something different. Sometimes it's just advice, sometimes it's co-developing, sometimes it's really developing the whole model. Okay, I will not explain this. I just put it here. So if someone is interested to see what is the process of the model development for the first project. And this brings me to my summary. So I shared my personal perspective. Making the decision of staying or leaving is very hard, and there are always advantages and disadvantages. There are various factors like residing in France or working across different cantons in Switzerland that add really complexity. And for people that want to stay in the area, I get always stories how hard it is to find something. If you decide you want to change and stay in the area, be ready to get plenty of rejections. But networking is the key. Networking is the answer many times that people don't have these rejections, and in the end they get lucky because of networking. They can try they can find easier positions in the area. And also what I find in physics is that they are lacking many times. We have our own terminology at CERN. We use our own tools, and we are not so much extrovert about it. And many times we know the technique. We have used the technique. We have used this ML algorithm in our reconstruction or analysis, but we don't know the terminology that is used outside. So when we have to be up to date with the terms that are used in the industry, in the enterprises, and the buzzwords that are needed, so we know what we are talking about if we are going to apply for data scientist jobs or ML and AI today. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Natalie. It was really nice to hear your experience, especially given the transition. Up next, we will hand over to the last speaker for the day, which is Dr. Raghav Kunnawalkam Elayavalli. They are an assistant professor at Vanderbilt University and part of the CMS collaboration.
Yeah, can you guys see here my slides and also me? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. It was unbelievable listening to both Rebecca and Natalie go through. And I think we're really going to hit a lot of the same points. On a personal note, I did want to say that when I was a PhD student at CMS, you know, when you're a student and you see all these like super high performing postdocs and you're like, oh my God, how can I be like, can I even get very close to their level of performance and physics that they do? That was Rebecca for me. I remember her from back then. So it's really exciting to have this talk now. Yeah, so I want to talk about my personal journey, hopefully give you all an idea in high energy nuclear physics, right? So first things first, who am I? My name is Professor Raghav Kunnawalkam Elayavalli. I use they, them pronouns. I'm non-binary. I'm assistant professor at Vanderbilt, which means I'm on the tenure track. So I'm not tenured yet. I started in the fall of 22. I serve on many different committees. One of them I really enjoy serving is the steering committee for Fisk Vanderbilt Bridge program, where we bring predominantly historically suppressed and underrepresented minorities into physics through our affiliation with this Fisk University in the US. I'm also part of the Data Science Institute, member of the Relativistic Heavy Ion Collider, Accelerating Gradient Synchrotron, Users Council, all of that. But first, let's talk about identities, okay? So as I've already said, I'm trans. That means that, you know, if you see me, people will assume that I'm a transgender woman. I prefer they, them pronouns at this point. I'm South Indian and Asian, right? So I was born and brought up in Chennai, huge city in South India. It's funny that our state the state that I was born and raised, the short form is TN. Now I live in Tennessee, which is also TN. So it's kind of a fun TN to TN story there. So I'm very tall. If you've met me in person, I'm 6'3". I'm also able-bodied, brown skin, which is a thing you have to deal with in the US, in different places. I think we need to understand the context, right? So when I was doing my PhD, when I was doing my postdoc, I did not socially transition. It took a long time. And essentially, it took the signing of the faculty job offer letter for me to come out publicly, and also the small thing of a pandemic in between. So it has taken me a long distance to get to where I am. So I'm here, 18 million miles, several different positions to where I am now. At Vanderbilt, you can see here, it's just in the state of Tennessee. My lab actually till yesterday, I was at Brookhaven on shift at my experiment, and that's where I made these slides. So you can actually see the little blue dot where I took a screenshot of where I was when I made this thing. So as everyone has been saying, pathways are many, right? Every single person's path is unique because every one of us are unique. And there's no one path to success. Like whatever path you take, if you end up doing something that you find fulfilling and you're happy, I will competitively call that as a success, right? That said, there are roughly many similar paths. I know one sort of intimately from recently what I have done, and some of my friends who we've discussed who all gotten faculty jobs. Some of my very good friends have been gung-ho on doing industry jobs. So I know some of those, but all of this, what I'm going to talk about, has survivor bias. So my main work is on jet physics in heavy ion collisions, right? How I got there is kind of complicated. So I was one of these people that's like, look, I really, really want to do theory. My undergraduate thesis topic was calculating string theory scattering amplitudes, you know, in like 10-dimensional using Verrazzano amplitudes and Riemann surface transformations and all of those things, right? I did do one summer research where I wanted to try to look at signature of technicolor particles. So maybe to the audience, people who are not aware of this, technicolor was a theory that gave particles mass before the Higgs boson was found, right? So this is 2009. I was doing this summer research, and I was helping the grad students and the postdocs in the analysis. And then I went and did some theory work. And then I was like, look, I really enjoy doing theory calculations, but I don't want to live in theory land. I want to live in data. I want to live in reality. That's where you get to see the real physics happen. So I then went to Stony Brook to do a master's. As I said, I wanted to do string theory. When I went to Stony Brook, it was hard because I essentially internalized the discussion around me that there were people who could come into grad school and they could do like quantum field theory, calculations. And even though I had done some string theory work, it's not really research, but I'd done some reading, I figured out I wasn't cut out for this. So I heard a talk by my master's advisor in a kind of a seminar, like the title of the talk was, where is the spin of the proton, right? I was like, well, it's an obvious question, isn't it? It's in the quarks. We all learned that proton is made up of 3 quarks. Well, and then in the talk, you find out that there's a lot more to protons. And then that's kind of where I started working on the software framework of the electron-ion collider. So I built this package called EIC Root. That was my master's thesis. People are using it now in EIC, although they call it slightly different. Here's another thing that you'll find out, like, that I am learning about myself as well, is I end up doing things and then finding out that smarter people have already done it. And I wrote my own jet finder and then found out that there's this thing called FastJet. So it gives you an idea that you want to kind of see where the things are going, right? So master's to PhD is a really funny transition because so I did my PhD at Rutgers. So I was doing the master's in the electron-ion collider, which, is still a decade away, right? 2034 is when the electron-ion collider is going to run at Brookhaven. I wanted to do something with real data that I can get my hands on. So I go to Rutgers. I wanted to do heavy ion physics because I quickly found out something about myself is that I really wanted to study, as I said, physics that is there, right? People have been talking about this quark-gluon plasma that forms in like heavy ion collisions, right? This is a state of deconfined quarks and gluons that are still strongly bound in a fluid-like state. It's not like it's completely asymptotically free. They're still low energy. They're still, few hundred MeVs together, but you can still talk about them as like sort of a quasi-particle state, right? And this fluid expands. It has a shear viscosity. It has, drag effects for jets that are going through it. So that was essentially my thesis, is to study this. And I did that in 4 years where we did jet spectra measurements in PP, PLED, lead. Each of those ended up in a CMS paper where I was one of the main analyzers. And in between, there's always this like theory itch that you want to do, right? At least for me. So I applied to this program called MCNet, which is, I believe, still running. And they had this Marie Curie Early Career Research Fellowship that you can apply for that gives you time. So you write a proposal, actually what you want to do, with who you want to do it at CERN in the theory group. And when I did that, I actually spent like 4 months at CERN working in the theory group. So I took some time off from my experiment analysis. And that was unbelievable. It's like one of these situations where, I told you how I internalized at Stony Brook that I was not smart enough. It's just now you've dialed that up with, to a factor of 10 with just espressos all around you. Like people are drinking coffee, they're discussing physics, and something that took me a long time to realize that, oh my God, this is really cool, right? I worked on phenomenology projects that had a direct impact on what I wanted to measure in terms of heavy ion collisions, what happens to jets as they pass through the plasma, right? Jets are made up of quarks and gluons. The quark-gluon plasma is made of quarks and gluons. Therefore, the plasma interacts with the jet interacts with the plasma. This results in the jet energy being lost to the plasma, right? This is what we call jet quenching. So there's a model called Joule, jet evolution with energy loss, run by Professor Corina Zapp, who's now at Lund. She was a research staff at the theory center, so I decided to work with Corina. And that was sort of an unbelievable experience, okay? So yes, I got it 5 minutes, thank you. So grad to postdoc, right? This is the thing that I think one of the first real transitions that you will find. So as a grad student, what is your goal, right? You do an analysis, you learn about the physics, you train to be a PhD. A PhD means you are an independent researcher, right? You're a scientist, you can take your principles, apply it to data. I didn't know if I really wanted a lab postdoc to spend time at a lab or spend time at a university. There are pros and cons. We can talk about this in the question and answer session. I always thought that, oh my God, I need to have a named fellowship. Otherwise, I'm not going to get a faculty job. Okay, that was my goal. I was like, look, I wanted to do research. I want to get a faculty job. That means I have to get one of these fancy named positions like the Oppenheimer Fellow or the Chamberlain Fellow at Berkeley or the Pappalardo Fellow at MIT. And I was like, none of these happened. I did get one fancy position, but it was in a different field of nuclear physics. This was going to the facility for rare isotope beams. So it's like nuclear physics, right? Didn't like the idea of reinventing myself. And then my partner at the time, now spouse, she really did not want to move to that space. So we had fun at a conference. I met my postdoc advisor, who at the time was the chair of my session where I gave a talk. And he basically asked me if I wanted to come there and work as a postdoc. So then I switched experiments. I switched facilities. I went from CERN to RHIC, to the relativistic heavy ion collider. That is interesting, right? You essentially take on a new role where you can prove to a new committee that you are an independent scientist. So what I look for in the first postdoc based on this experience, right, is to essentially come to me with a project and interest and roles that you want to take. And absolutely importantly, show an interest in mentoring students, create projects for the undergrads and summer students, etc. I am personally, I personally love teaching, but I never taught, not even a single semester until I started my faculty job. So I had to do a training on how to teach summer student on how to teach STEM currently, right? So that's something that you're going to have to figure out what it is you want to do when you start that. So from the postdoc, I went to a research scientist position. Since I said, let me continue at RHIC. I'd already spent some time. I already became convener of the physics group at STAR, the experiment I was working on. One of the people, I decided to apply for faculty jobs in 2019. So before the pandemic started, which actually we were at a conference in Wuhan in 2019. In November 10th, we were in Wuhan. November 19th was the first, I believe, the first case of at the market there. Everyone came back from that conference sick. And so we can discuss it if that is something that we had incidentally led. But I didn't get anything from that faculty job application. I did learn a lot what to do. So I ended up creating a program, right? I think this is, yeah, I got you. This is the key here, right? What you need to do is have sort of an agenda at this stage when you become towards the end of the first postdoc, start of your second postdoc, kind of big picture agenda that the community starts to realize, right? Okay, so this is what Raghav wants to do. It's not that, okay, Raghav wants to, do this measurement. You need to go one step higher, right? I also built a high school outreach program for the electron ion collider. And you can ask why. There are multiple reasons. This was a lot of work. But one, universities love outreach. I personally love outreach. For me, the electron ion collider in 2034, if I reach high school students now, they are the postdocs and the grad students and the research scientists who we are going to end up hiring as colleagues at the time the EIC works around. So when I tried in the fall of 21 to apply for my faculty jobs, I had an agenda that was identifiable, that was unique. I could do experiments. I could talk to theorists. I had publications with theorists. I had multiple experimental results. I had a high school outreach program. applied to 4 positions, 1 interview, got the job, right? That is, as people have said, this is not the most common situation, but that's where I was, right? I had kind of socially transitioned at Yale, essentially when we came out of the pandemic in the department, and my mentors at the time were unbelievably supportive, and they were just like, look, we need you to be yourself. I show up at Vanderbilt with a fresh start, and people who only know me as me now. The first big conference as a faculty I went to, I was talking to some people, and I got this phrase that, hey, so Vanderbilt is now hiring diversity candidates. Great news, right? Which to me tells me that, okay, so you think I got hired because I bring diversity, not because of my physics goals, not because of my, who I am. This also is something that you end up internalizing. And as a consequence, you work like crazy, right? And so in 23, I won the Department of Energy Early Career Award. I have an NSF supplement. I have 2 NSF supplements currently submitted, 1 on science outreach, 1 on AI. Starting this fall, I'll be a Dean's Faculty Fellow at Vanderbilt. And this is just something that I feel like this job is sort of made for me, right? I have 2 postdocs working with me, 1 on RIC, 1 on LHC. I just hired another one, 4 PhD students, all of this. What that means is what I do now. If you want a research tenure track job, I'll finish with this. My life is essentially meetings most of the time, but it's kind of fun. You get to talk to students a lot. I absolutely enjoy teaching. I am on all of these different collaborations. This is a theory experiment collaboration. This is my main experiment. I'm also on CMS, as I've said before, and then also on EPIC for the future. So this is my group. We can see us taking data at S-Phoenix. This is the science outreach program. Go to my website. This is free. If you guys want to read about it, I wrote a Scientific American article, what that is. Along the way, one last thing I will highlight is there are days when I cannot do anything. There are, many days where I cannot do anything because the imposter syndrome concept is very, very strong. It comes up, it goes away. It comes up, goes away. And it just doesn't disappear. It just manifests itself differently. What you get better at is identifying it when it pops up and you move on. And choose your battles, folks. There are many battles that you will have to fight. Some are relevant, some are necessary. Few are critical, right? And senior people and allies are necessary. They will fight on your behalf. So that's all. Thank you very much. Sorry about going over.
No worries. Thanks a lot. Also a very interesting talk. Now we are running a bit late, but we managed to extend the session a little bit. So we will start a brief Q&A session. So you can raise your hand and ask your questions to any of the speakers. We will monitor the participant list. Okay, I don't see many people, so everything was clear. Maybe I can start with one question that is mainly directed to Rebecca. So the question is how if you have never had any kind of non-academic position before, how can you negotiate, for example, the salary or something else related to this position, even though you have never had any kind of experience in this sense?
Yeah, that is a good question, and I think not only me, for sure, also Raghav had some experience, because I think in the US it's also the same, right? From my side, I had no idea. I didn't even know that I had to negotiate when I was applying to US positions. There was Ken Bloom told me you need to negotiate, but I really had no idea. But then coming to Uppsala, I had to negotiate again. And at the beginning, I didn't, but then moving through different levels of faculty positions, I started doing that. And I understand how important it is now. So this is where it comes back to having a mentor that can help you out in this. So I don't know, Rai, you want to also add something in there?
Yeah, so faculty job applications are really weird because like they are one of these things where they expect you to think like the position that you're already in, right? They want you to write a research proposal that you will then use to get a grant. But like, you know, when you write something, the next year you will do it a lot better, right? Just because of the fact you've gone through the experience. So I had people who tell me like, look, this is the negotiation that happens. So you have mentors in your university, among your career. I was able to negotiate additional funds to my startup so I can send my students to Brookhaven. So my entire group, I flew back last night because I have another thing going on today, but they're all at Brookhaven. And that was the thing I negotiated, right? I was told I cannot negotiate my salary because I don't have a competing offer from another institution. If I did, I would have been able to negotiate that. But that's the thing that you need sort of a person who's already gone through this to then tell you.
Yes.
Okay, I see. Thanks a lot.
Do we have any?
Yes,
Okay,
we have a question by Jana. Go ahead. Jana, maybe you're not allowed to unmute. Okay, let me fix it.
So maybe you can type your question in the
Yeah,
chat.
yeah. No, this is strange. Do we have the questions typed?
Maybe we can go to Shubhadeep.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Yes. So my question is actually not direct to someone, I mean to anybody specifically. So my question is, I'm actually about to finish my PhD, and we'll try to finish it maybe within 6 months or 6 or 7 months. So my question is, it's probably quite relevant for me as of now. What's a good time for applying for a postdoc? As I'm actually trying to find one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
Yes.
mean,
Raghav, go ahead.
if you, I don't know, like Rebecca was trying to say something.
No, I was just pointing to Natalie or you, who wants to start?
Well, okay, so in theory, there are well-defined timelines, right? You apply in September for next August, well, at least in the US. Experiment, like jobs just show up, right? And sometimes, as I've told you, the position I got at Wayne State was just someone that, you know, I just created for me to come there, right? There are also positions people will put up. So usually you only graduate sort of if you have a job lined up, and your advisor might be able to swing that. But yeah, that's just my experience. I mean, you can already apply. If you think you're ready, if your advisor thinks that you're ready, start applying to places that you want to go.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense.
Just a comment, you can also apply for a certain fellowship, and this is twice per year, I think.
I don't think that okay, I'm going to go with your name, Subhadeep. I don't think Indians currently can apply.
Okay.
Oh, really?
Okay, so
I'm sorry to break it to you, dude. I tried.
It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, but there is a loophole. It depends in which institution you are doing your PhD,
Okay.
because then you can enter via the country where you did your PhD. So that
Okay.
is an important
Yes,
loophole
indeed,
that
indeed.
you can use.
Okay.
So just
Sadly, I'm currently in India actually.
yeah, read the rules and check if you are eligible, and if you are eligible, you can try, and you know that it's twice per year.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I also like to, yes. Thanks for your suggestions regarding this. I have another question. That's regarding something. Currently, I'm in Alice collaborations, and suppose in future, if I want to switch experiments, say for example, I want to I want to apply for a postdoc, but that's in somewhere in maybe in Atlas or CMS. So what are the chances of getting selected in that case? I mean, I know it's going to be challenging, but for me, I mean, getting to be selected for that particular positions, what are the odds?
I don't think the odds are particularly low, depending also on how you frame yourself, right? If you're doing Alice and then you want to, for example, join a heavy ion group in CMS or in Atlas, there you can very clearly make a line of like, yeah, I'm interested in changing and doing this. And probably there are more jobs in Atlas and CMS than in Alice, just based in the statistics. So I think it's not like you will not have any chances. Of course, if you apply for a job that is very specific in something that is very different to what you do and you cannot motivate it well, then probably being from Alice, it will make things more complicated. People will be like, I know this candidate. But if you have a case for it, I think it shouldn't be a very limiting factor.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's fine. I mean, if you want to continue in heavy ions, then obviously the Atlas heavy ion contingent is smaller than the CMS heavy ion contingent, which is way smaller than the Alice heavy ion contingent, right? So that's your job numbers that are just available. So I would highly recommend switching experiments. That is just an amazing experience to go to learn, to bring your ideas and then like apply it in a different space. You just become a better you're able to like analyze things in context much more.
Yes. Yep. Answered that. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Maybe we can now address Jana's question.
Yes.
I will read it out. Clearly, the application processes take a lot of time, in particular for permanent positions. How do you balance the huge amount of work related to the application processes and the actual work you had promised to deliver during your postdocs?
The $1 million question.
I mean, since I applied a lot to permanent positions, I think I could give a... So I did balance it badly. I mean, most of my applications, I didn't put the effort that it was needed, but I probably was also not super ready for getting a job in that particular moment. And I always prioritized the main work that I was doing in CMS at the time. So this has to be a little bit on you. But there is people that prioritize 100% applying to faculty positions, and it works. So maybe sometimes the things that we promise to deliver or the things that we want to deliver are not as important as we might think they are while we are in it. But anyway, it is not easy. That's the way it is.
Yeah, I would also just add that, talk to your supervisor. Obviously, you should have a really, really good relationship with your postdoc supervisor such that you can tell them like, all right, like today is like, let's say, well, okay, I mean, today is a Tuesday, right? Let's say that you want to get a draft of your research proposal for a faculty statement, right? Or for a faculty job application. That takes, in my opinion, like 2 weeks to work, at least for me. I know maybe other people could write a grant application in a day or in half a day. That's not me, right? So you need to put some time effort in there. You can just tell your person that, okay, if you have no more, like, let's say you don't have any more convenership meetings or any official thing you can just be like, look, I need to go write this. And if you are in a good working relationship, they can be like, okay, go write this up because your advisor wants you to succeed. That's why they're your advisor, right? So that's something that and we all have finite time. We have finite attention span. You need to focus on life, not just work. That means that some things go in the back burner with the lid on low heat, and they just stay there. And that's okay.
They are kicking me out from this room in Lund University. I need to abandon you all. But thank you very much for the invitation. Thanks for the talks. They were great. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Natalie. It's great to see you again. So, all right. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Yeah, so if there are no more comments on this, we also have to wrap up because we are restarting the job matching sessions now. So I would like to thank again both speakers that are left, and thanks a lot for the very inspiring talks. For all the participants, the slides are on Indico, so you can have a look. And yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I'll just say that I'll just say if anyone has any questions, you want to directly email me as opposed to I know speaking a lot in a crowd is probably hard, but like feel free to email me. You can go on my slides, the first link has my website. From there, you can find my email.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you again.
Yep, thank you. Bye
Bye,
bye.
folks.
Bye.
Bye.